All right, it's Big Space to be here live from the MMB Radio Studios, a very chilly radio studios this morning. A whopping 18 degrees here in Philadelphia, but we're bringing some joy and some warmness to the airwaves today. We have the one and only Mr. Hal Sparks on the phone lines with us. Hal, how are you?
I'm fantastic, thanks. And you are correct. I am the one and only. I think that applies across the board.
Yeah.
To most human beings, most people, I think, just don't take advantage of it. You might be the only version of you that exists, but most people just kind of go, I know I'm an original cut, from, the perfect fabric of the universe, but I think I'll just stand in line like these other dopes. I think...
Well, we appreciate you waking up early to talk about your upcoming shows in Philadelphia because you had a show last night at the Helium Comedy Club. How did that go?
Awesome, but that's kind of par for the course for me. And I've got two tonight. We're sold out Sunday. We sold out the Valentine's Day show on Sunday, so we added another one at 5:00, and then I'm sold out Saturday too. So it's pretty awesome. It's going good. Where I think it's funny because while I wouldn't call my act clean by any stretch, I'm not vulgar. I carefully choose my words in that regard, and so I think I'm slightly more couples friendly than a lot of comics can be, and so I think that's why we get a lot of Valentine's requests to do big show weekends and the like, is because I can say stuff that's clearly adult, but I'm not going to make your date pissed at you for bringing you out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so if you were looking for something to do this Valentine's Day and you want to take your bae, as all the kids are saying, to a good show, definitely check you out at Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia. Now, you're a very busy man. You do the TV thing, you do film, you do radio, you do podcasting, you do stand-up. How do you have time to juggle everything?
Well, I don't know. I think it's just good time management. I think a lot of people don't realize how much time they waste. It's always one of those things like, people ask me how much spare time I have. I don't have any spare time. I have time that I use to have fun. I have time that I use to play video games or be silly or hang out with friends. But it's not spare time. It's actually used for that purpose. And my, so it's not like I miss out and I'm overworked all the time. I just feel like, people have a lot of free time. A lot of people waste time at work. They could be doing any number of things. Most people at their 9 to 5 have enough free time during that day that they could run their own sideline internet business if they so chose, just because of the amount of downtime that they actually have, if they really put it together. And so for me, it's just a matter of using that well. Nobody knows how much time they've got. Nobody knows what opportunities are going to come their way specifically. So if they're there in front of you, you just burn them down. You take advantage of it entirely.
Now,
that's really all it is.
Now, you've done a lot in the business, and we fielded a couple questions from people online. We had people email questions to us, and people were very familiar with your work. We had one of the people send in a question, so you got to ask him about 20Q and being Mr. Q, and I told him, I said, well, I promise I will try not to bombard you with a lot of questions about your past, because I got a lot of queer as folk questions as well. And
a
lot of people...
insofar as the 20Q thing, that was a voiceover job. I do a lot of VO stuff. I did Tack and the Power of Juju, which is a cartoon on Nickelodeon that ran for 3 years. I've done like movie voiceover work and that kind of stuff as well. That's an entire career in and of itself. You can actually watch the transition in the work that I've done and gotten over time, starting with, like Dr. Dolittle when I did that, to now where my voice is much more recognizable to people, so I can't do the kind of anonymous character stuff. I'm now getting hired to be the voice of very specifically, which is an interesting career arc.
Now, how often do you get asked questions about queer as folk? I know you have a YouTube
Daily.
channel.
I don't know, thanks to Twitter. Yeah.
And do you get frustrated or annoyed by answering the same questions over, or like how do you take it in stride?
Well, one of the reasons why I started doing the QA FAQ on my YouTube channel was because it wasn't that I was annoyed or whatever, but I just literally did not have the time to keep re-answering the question fully, to give a full answer. And so I decided to shoot videos that are the full answer, and that way anybody who wants to know can just click on that link, and the the questions that they may have had, that if other people have asked the same question, the answer is there, and it's not just like a tweet that I send them that can be misread or is half an answer, And so I don't mind giving a real answer to the question. The only time it becomes annoying is when somebody asks a question that requires a nuanced, asks a question that requires a nuanced answer. That's a lot of work, That's and you don't want to go, okay, if I answer this question halfway, they're going to be mad. They're not going to understand what I mean, or they're going to take offense at this, or they're going to think that I'm dissing something or negative about it. And it requires more than that, So so I don't mind. I just want to give a real answer.
Now, what question, QAF's question, do you get asked the most?
I don't know. I mean, there's several. I mean, it depends on who's asking the question, because a lot of people ask the question, are you gay? Like it's contagious. And
it is an epidemic, huh?
Yeah, right. And that was one of the things that I tried to make abundantly clear. I was very open about my heterosexuality over the course of the show. Not so much, and some people read that as distancing myself from the show or appearing homophobic, but the reality was I was addressing a crowd of people who watch the show and think that, everybody there must be gay because nobody would do this if they weren't, which is a total fallacy. And the other thing is that they believe it's a choice and or it's contagious. And if you're trying to make the case to people that gay people are born the way they are, it's completely natural and human, and that they should be allowed to be themselves, then to continually go, look, I was on the show, I'm straight, I'm still straight, end of conversation. Mm-hmm. It's not a choice. It's not an accident. It's your identity. It's yourself. And so by continually going, yep, nope, still straight, it was to eat against that kind of questioning. It wasn't for necessarily supporters of the show or even viewers of the show, but detractors of the show, kind of undercutting their argument.
It's definitely not Zika fever. Yeah. It's not something that you have to avoid going to places because you could,
you could catch gay. But you'd be amazed how many people still think that, or think it's, and there's lots of social reasons why they want to think it's a, it's a choice. Because in the South, for example, if you have a gay kid, it's considered an embarrassment, in a lot of, highly religious quarters in very rural areas. And so thinking that it's contagious or optional or a choice means that it can be reversed, and therefore it gives them some sense of hope that if, God forbid, their kid comes up and says, Mom, Dad, I'm gay, that they could go, oh, this is just a phase or something you're going through, or it's the people you're hanging out with, or you've been watching too much TV, or that stupid college you're going to. And if you just stick around with us and go to our church, then you'll be straight again. It gives them some sort of ridiculous solace, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Now, you're very big in the LGBT community. Now, is this something that you were involved with prior to QAF? Or
I worked with AIDS Project Los Angeles and Project Angel Food in L.A., in the early days of the AIDS crisis, and in the 90s, dealing with that. And so I had a lot of friends in the gay community, and it was just kind of a natural part of my life. It wasn't extraordinary in any ways. It was just normal. So when the show came along, I didn't have the flinch factor that other people had. I didn't have this kind of like, oh, I don't know, is that okay? What will people think? Like, I could care less. So, that certainly helped in the decision-making for me, I suppose, because it took the work out of it. Whereas other people, quite frankly, panicked at the idea, gay and straight.
Now, a bunch of us were here in the studio and we're talking about, we're going over different things that you've done, and people are just bringing up past memories, like the Zoltan. And one of the things I brought up was Treasure Mall. And everyone kind of looked at me like, a lot of the younger guys in the studio are all looking at me like, what is Treasure Mall? I'm like, you guys don't remember Treasure Mall? Kind of take us, like, what was that experience like being so young, doing a show, and
it was
kind of your first break?
Technically the youngest game show host in history, I guess, at least on American television that we're aware of. And, that was one of the factors of I won the Funniest Teenager in Chicago contest when I was 17, and I kind of booked that immediately afterwards. I was shooting it while I was still in high school, so I was going to high school in Chicago, and then I would fly to Los Angeles and for the weekend, shoot over the weekend, and then fly back on Monday, go to school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, fly out Thursday night, shoot and rehearse Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and do it over again for almost 3 months. And then, which was an extraordinary experience, and I got the best grades of my life because I was no longer bored and I was very focused on what the task in front of me. But I learned the rules of how to do a game show because there's so many technical rules. If you screw up, it costs the show a lot because you have to give away every prize, and there's all sorts of people can say, I was asked the question wrong compared to how the other person was asked it, and therefore I lost a chance to win. And so there was so much training. I literally was trained with a bell. The producer had a bell. If I said certain words the wrong way, he would ring the bell like Pavlov, and I'd have to start the whole spiel over again to learn how to do it.
Now, I always tell people that it was kind of a precursor to Double Dare.
Yeah.
Like, everybody doesn't really realize it. I was kind of trying to explain it to the people here, and I'm like, it's like Double Dare, and we were looking up videos on YouTube, and I have to say, the swag that you had back then, I mean, the jumpsuits and the high-top sneakers, a lot of that is coming full circle. So you were an innovator in so many aspects.
I was way ahead of the curve on that. Totally. I mean, the big blue jumpsuit was the hilarious part. It was like that. That was straight up Fat Boys. I think we borrowed it from them. But again, I have zero embarrassment factor on anything I've done early that may or may not be in or out of current style. No bearing whatsoever on my own sense of self-worth. I always think it's funny when people, artists, bands especially, look back at clothes or styles they had at a certain point in history, and go, oh, I'm so embarrassed by that back then. I'm like, why? That's not you anymore. That's who you were then. That's how that stuff works. It's okay.
Embrace it.
Yeah, exactly. Just, and so I think it's a lot of fun.
We're talking to Hal Sparks here. He's going to be at Helium Comedy Club this weekend in Philadelphia. Now, it's worth noting that you're doing the Disney's Lab Rat show on XD, and it just the Bionic Rat Lab or whatever one of it just finished up in February. Kind of explain what is Lab Rats to people out there who don't have children or do not watch Disney XD. Like, what is that whole concept?
It's a live-action sci-fi show sitcom that we do about. I play a billionaire scientist inventor who created 3 bionic kids, and my new wife's son, who is not bionic, introduces them to the normal world, and they fight crime. It's kind of built on that premise. The show was created by 2 writers from that '70s show, and the executive producer and creator of that '70s show, Mark Brazil. And so the jokes that were in it were as good as anything I'd seen in any sitcom script that I was looking at, and I jumped at the chance to do it because the character was so just crazy fun, and so we've been doing it for 4 years now, and I'm now a director on the show as well, and I got in the DGA last year because of it, which is a fantastic step for somebody like me, and now I'm in kind of that narrow field of directors who can do special effects really comfortably because of my experience on the show, and it's been great.
And it is worth noting as well that it is the most watched show on Disney XD, which is
the only thing that
big
beat
deal.
The only thing that beat our premiere last year was Empire,
which is crazy when you stop and you think about
the number of people.
People, you hear Empire and people are like, oh, I've heard of that, but then not so many people say they've heard of Lab Rats,
right?
And you're like, wow, in comparison they're doing same
numbers. Yeah, it's so weird. And it's actually been a great thing. And you do realize who your audience is when the whole family is showing up. When you're getting corralled by everybody in the mall as opposed to just one. Like 'cause with Queer as Folk or I Love the '80s or Dude, Where's My Car or Talk Soup, even there would be one person in a family that would know one thing that I did that was sort of specialized to whatever they liked. Meanwhile, with Lab Rats, I'm getting the entire crowd. If the kids watch it, the parents know what it is. Everybody's coming over. It's awesome.
Now, what's it like working with Disney? Because you do stand-up comedy, so you kind of have to toe that thin line there where you are representing a family company with Disney, but you also want to be yourself and be a comedian and do your own things and be adult at times. What's it like balancing those two?
They put no limitations on what I do at all. I give them a tremendous amount of credit that they never even broached the issue as far as the issues that I talk about or the language I use in stand-up shows, because it's specific to the venue. I'm capable of discussing things with my friends in a different way that I discuss it in front of my grandmother. And I think that's all it takes. A well-rounded human being knows where, to use what kind of language and talk about what kind of topics. It's just about respect for your environment. So it's been no problem whatsoever. If anything, I've tried to be, a good point of guidance for the kids on the show. And it's worked out that way. And like I said, to Disney's credit, they didn't flinch at the fact that I'd been on Queer as Folk at all. All gay storyline aside, it's a very adult show. Beyond anything it makes Breaking Bad look like a Saturday morning cartoon as far as content. And so that they could have said, well, we can't hire him just because of that. And they didn't, so I give them a lot of credit for that.
Now, one of the things I found very interesting about you, and you've said in past interviews, and you've made mentions about, is that you've never taken any drugs or drank any alcohol. Do you consider yourself straight edge?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a description that works for me. I was doing it before that existed, even before there was a straight edge. I suppose. It's a good label to help people understand it. It's not, there are people who co-opt it and make it a religious thing. In some cases, there are some people who co-opt it and make it strictly a punk, X lifestyle. But to me, it's just natural living. I don't need any external help. I don't need any help being weird or socially active. I don't. I
totally agree.
I think drugs are temporary weird for normal people. If you live a normal life and your life is completely normal, some people take drugs just to feel weird for a while or feel off or feel perpendicular to the life experience that most people have. And I don't need any help feeling that way. That's how I feel all the time. It's why I'm stand-up, arguably. It's why I write music, quite frankly. It's because that's my perception point in life. So I don't, high wouldn't make it any better or any clearer or anything like that. And the same thing goes for alcohol. I don't need that. I don't need a social lubricant. I don't need anybody, I don't need to relax to feel like I need to talk to anybody. Never have. It's just not there. I don't begrudge anybody doing it, though. I also don't judge people for doing it. It's their choice. But I'm happy to be the designated driver if that's what comes up, because I just don't have any interest.
Now, I respect you for that, because I consider myself straight edge, and along the same reasonings that you presented yourself, a lot of people, I tell them, I'm straight edge, I don't drink, I don't do drugs and everything, and they automatically want to just, label it with the punk and X lifestyle. So
right.
I appreciate that you're out there kind of doing the same thing I'm doing, where you're like, no, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be punk or,
No.
a certain lifestyle. It's kind of just doing your own thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, the most punk thing you can do, or the most metal thing you can do, because I've never been a punk fan. I like musicians who practice, so I've always been more of a metalhead. And this is not something that necessarily falls naturally into place with what you would envision as metalheads per se. But that doesn't matter. The whole point of it is individualism in that regard, being yourself. So I've always been a Kiss fan. It's like, the whole thing is do you, do your thing, be yourself. And that always appealed to me even when I was a little kid. And so drinking because of social pressure, doing drugs because of social pressure, or even not doing it because of social pressure because, religious family members don't think it's right or it's against your religion as a group think idea just didn't work for me. The reason I don't do it is because I've chosen not to do it, period. It has no bearing on whether anybody else does it or don't do it.
Now, you mentioned that you do the music and you record music. You have your own band, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
now,
01.
All right, now, how long have you been doing this? Is this something you've been doing for quite a while?
Yeah, I've been in band since high school. Most people don't pay attention to it until you become some level of famous. So once you are, they think it's something you're doing now that you are famous or what have you. That comes up a lot. But I find that music, acting, stand-up, they're all different artistic expressions that don't overlap. There are emotions you can do in music that you can't do in stand-up, and vice versa. Like, you can do annoyance in stand-up, but it's too small an emotion for music. You can do rage, genuine rage and sorrow in music, but it's out of place in stand-up. You can do all of those feelings as an actor, but you don't have any control over when you'll get to do them. You don't, you can't come into work and go, I feel angry today, let's do an angry scene. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to craft whatever your emotion is germane to the project. So each one of them, has a very specific, artistic outlet to it. And they, you can't understand one of them, better because you do another. They're their own thing.
We're talking to Hal Sparks here. It's going to be at Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia this weekend. Now, like we said, we mentioned that we fielded some questions from fans, and one of the fans had emailed and said, we know that you're very outspoken and opinionated, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And wanted to know, have you been watching any of these debates online, and kind of like what is your opinion on everything that's going on a political stance?
Well, yeah, I've watched all the debates. I do a radio show every Saturday called the Hal Sparks Radio Show, Mega Worldwide. It's on WCPT Radio in Chicago. We're on every Saturday. It's a political talk show, so I delve deep into these issues. I'm a policy wonk. I like governing. I appreciate the complexity of doing it. I think that there's an infantile response right now where people are like, whenever anybody says, why is a bill 3,000 pages long, or that's their gripe about it, is that it's too much, I know they're not serious. And I think the complexity of running a country, a democracy of 330 million people, is integral to what's going on. So I like paying attention to the details because of that. I like detail, which is, why I think there's only one active, genuine political party in the country right now. I mean, the Democratic Party is the only working political entity that exists. What's going on in the Republican Party is a shame. It would be nice to have a loyal opposition or a genuine conservative viewpoint played forth, but quite frankly, that only comes from what I would consider conservative Democrats these days. I think people like Jim Webb and Max Baucus and people like that are as right-wing as you need to still be able to govern. And they're Democrats. What's happening as far as, the Trump nonsense and all that on the right is an undermining of any genuine conservative thought. It's unfunctional. It's not even dysfunctional. It's without function. And anybody whose argument is we're just going to make it better, trust me, is cartoonish and silly. That being said, they're very entertaining, but they're not. But that's not politics. What's happening in the Republican debate is not politics. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, there's you've got two people fighting tooth and nail who are in 95% agreement on everything, and that's because they both know that there is no one worth voting for on the Republican side. They will not garner national support no matter what they do, and that whoever is the Democratic nominee will more than likely win unless they totally egg it. So, for the reality is that I want somebody to operate the country. I don't need a leader. I'm a grown man. I make my own life decisions. I don't need a moral compass outside myself either, but I do need a functional executive running the country. And that's what I look for in these. And you watch these kind of situations and you go, would I hire this person to run my company? Saying what they're saying, speaking like they're speaking. That's effectively, and keep in mind, in my company, I don't want to fire anybody. You can't fire the public. So to keep this analogy solid, that's super important.
Now, how often do you bring politics into your stand-up routine? Is that something that you're cool with
almost
doing?
Never. Almost never. I do socio-political commentary in that I talk about how we all live together in giant groups, which technically is politics. I just don't bring names into it very often. Occasionally, if something sillier strikes me as, if I feel like doing a Trump or Bernie Sanders impersonation and fitting it into a joke just randomly because I'm having fun, I'll do that. But I found that I make more headway around issues that I care a lot about if I speak about them in non-political terms. If I talk about them in terms of their social impact as ideas from the inside them, meaning that if I talk largely, if I mention a name and say this is why blah 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 to gay marriage, or I make an attachment to taxes or what have you, certain members of the audience, their ears will shut. That's just how it works.
Now, other than the upcoming shows in Philadelphia this weekend at Helium Comedy Club, the 4 shows sold out. What else do you have coming up?
Well, I go back to L.A. on Monday after I'm done with these shows, and then I'm working on. I have 3 short films we're doing in quick succession, and then I have some basically what I would call driving dates in the L.A. area. I go out to Claremont, California, and Las Vegas, and a couple other places for the next few weeks. And then I'm back out on the road after that. People can go to the Facebook page, and I'll put those up on the events calendar on the Hal Sparks Fang page, and I post that stuff on Twitter. When the dates come up. A lot of it is I'm trying to shoehorn as many dates as I can in because I'm working on a new special. So what I'm working out this weekend, what I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks when I do these, kind of single dates, is doing the building what that final version of this set will be.
Well, people can find you on Twitter and Instagram at Hal Sparks, and we appreciate you taking some time, getting up early, talking to us. Like I said, I know it's only 18 degrees, but that shouldn't mean anything to you. You're from Chicago, so this is like tropical weather to you.
Yeah, exactly. This is bikini weather. Totally cool.
So we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us. Check him out at Helium Comedy Club this weekend. It's been an honor and a real pleasure to be talking to you, and we hope to hear from this new special because fans are asking questions. When is he going to do another recorded special, like a CD or DVD?
Yeah.
So
that's coming. That's what we're working on. Yep, it's in the works.
Well, we appreciate it, and much success to you, and thank you for taking some time to talk to us.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye. Hey, this is Hal Sparks, the guy who's always on your television set. Yeah, you're listening to Masta B on MMB Radio.